I think one of the best things about Anchor is for somebody that was a little nervous going into their podcast, first recording their podcast experience. It gave me all the tools necessary to record my own podcast. It gave me sound bits. It gave me recording tips. It gave me everything. So I would recommend Anchor to anybody who's a first-time podcaster or a veteran looking to expand their brand. In order to get Anchor, you can either download the Anchor app from the store, from your phone's store or computer store, or also go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome to the Syracuse Lacrosse Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Hamer. Going to be recapping the Colgate game today. Certain things that I saw. I was able to watch the game on YouTube afterwards. I was not able to attend the game, but I was able to rewatch it a few times actually. Took some just kind of notes that I saw. So we'll go over those after I go over a couple of stats. We're going to go over. We're going to go over shots on goal, saves, clears, ground balls, face-offs, and EMOs, extra man opportunities. First thing we're going to look at is shots. And then at the end of all these stats, I'm going to go through a couple other odd stats. We're going to break some of these stats out into detail. Ground balls, face-offs, EMOs, shots on goal. And I give you the high numbers for certain players and also kind of give out grades to each team's positional group at the end of it. So, the shots for Syracuse, they had 65 shots. In the first half, they had 30. And then in the second half, they had 35. So the offense got a little better, I would say, shot-wise, going into the second half. Colgate shot the ball 45 times. Their first half total was 31. And they only had 14 shots in the second half. That's a good number for the Syracuse defense. They cut their shots in half, basically. Shots on goal is very different from shots. Obviously, keeper has to make a move. Keeper makes a save. Versus a shot that just goes over the top of the goal. It counts as a shot. Or other shots that are wide of the net that basically count as a shot but don't count as a shot on goal. So, shots on goal for Colgate, they had 26 total. 15 of those came in the first half. And just 11 in the second half. So 11 out of their 14 shots were in the second half were on goal, which is a very good percentage to have. Most teams average about 50%, I would say. That's the number that I usually look at as a barometer. Syracuse had an even number of shots on goal in each half, actually. So they had 18. And then they also had 18 in the second half. So their numbers, their percentages kind of went down. They had 35 shots in the second half, and they had 18 of them on cage, so that's about 50%. That's generally what you're going to see. Unless you have a high-scoring offense like Syracuse does, this isn't the game that you're going to see it, because you're going to see them get by guys, you're going to see them take the quick shots, and so that's something to look at. Now, when I go to the saves, obviously, I take the number of goals that they score, I subtract them out, then I can figure out what numbers we're looking at. Colgate goalkeeper had 21 saves, or 15 saves. So, obviously 15 out of 36. Syracuse's 36 shots, 21 of those went in, giving the keeper 15 saves. Drake Porter for Syracuse had 12 saves on just 26 shots faced. Just a quick number for those. We're also going to go into clears while I'm talking about the goalie, because both goalies played a huge part in the clear game. Syracuse actually went a perfect 22 for 22. Generally, you're not going to see that. You're going to see a couple of loose balls, a couple of drop passes. Attackman for the other team get a good ride where they're able to check the ball out of the defenseman's stick or the midfielder's stick. Colgate went 15 for 23. Generally, you're going to see that as more of a number. Like I said, drop passes, a lot of things play into that number. So, just something to look at when you're talking about goalies. They're going to play a huge part in the clear game, as do their close defensemen. Now, the stat of the game that I look at, always, besides shots, I look at ground balls. Because ground balls equals time of possession. And that time of possession generally leads to the team that wins the time of possession, just like in football, is generally going to win the game. So Syracuse actually had 45 ground balls. Kind of an even quarter for them. So something to look at. They had 45 ground balls. Colgate actually had 30. So Syracuse won the ground ball game by 15. Like I said, generally leads to more possessions. Now the stat attached to that is face-offs. Because, let's say the face-off guy kicks it out, I get 2 ground balls. My team's got 1 possession out of those. So generally, like I said, you got to figure ground balls, and then you have to take into account the amount of possessions that you're going to get out of it. Syracuse won the face-off game 25-14. That's a good number to have. Syracuse last year a lot of times struggled to get wins off the face-off, so it was very nice to get off to a good start for this team. Danny Brillo and Jacob Fopp did a very good job. I've got their individual numbers. I'm going to talk about those in a little bit. Extra man opportunities, EMOs, usually plays a good part in the game, but it doesn't play as big a part as it used to. A lot of teams are better scoring 6-on-6 due to the plays that they run on offense. But Syracuse went 1 of 2 on two attempts, obviously. 1 EMO goal. And Colgate actually went 3 of 6. So Colgate won that category, but didn't win the game. Syracuse's big outburst for the total goals. The final score was 21-14, but the total, Syracuse's big number generally always comes out in the third quarter. They're a team that looks to capitalize off a halftime speech from Desco, or now Pat March. So, I'm going to go into a little more detailed stats. First for Colgate. Their leader on shots for the game was actually Griffin Brown on attack. So, great game by him. He had 10 shots, 4 goals, 4 points total. He did have 1 turnover, so he actually played a good game for the most part. The guy who had a better game for them, actually, he had 4 points, was Brian Minikis, I guess is the way I would say. He actually had 1 goal, 3 assists. And also Mike Hawkins, another midfielder for Colgate, had another good game. 5 goals, 1 assist for a total of 6 points. He was the leading point getter for Colgate. 5 goals on 7 shots, actually, which is a great number to have, great percentage. So, great job by the Colgate offense, by the midfield line. carrying their team for a lot of the game, it looks like. Now, on their defensive side, they had 7 caused turnovers. Parker Badley had 2 of those. None of their close defensemen besides Sean Nelson had a caused turnover, so look for that. That's another good stat to look at when you're talking about on the defensive side. Caused turnovers, just like any other sport. Let's say I hit a guy, my midfielder picks up the ground ball. Technically, that's a caused turnover because I caused that to happen. For their face-off guys, Thomas Colucci went 1 of 2. And Malcolm Feeney took a majority of the face-offs. He went 13 of 36. So looking back on that, we had them going 14 of 39. So Malcolm Feeney won 13 out of 14 face-offs for them, which is a good number when you think about it, but it's not at the same time because he lost a third. He won a third of the face-offs he took. So that's a number to look at when you're talking about Colgate stats. Excuse me. We're going to take a look at Syracuse stats now. Leading goal scorer was Chase Scanlon, newly minted number 22. 12 shots on goal and 7 goals for a total of 7 points. He was not the leading point getter, though, for Syracuse. That was actually Stephen Rafis. He had 8 points, 1 goal, 7 assists. He also had 6 ground balls, which is another huge, like I said, multiple possessions, especially for an attackman to get 6 ground balls. That's a great number to have from your attack. So I look at that number when I look at stats. I look at what my attack's getting. The other big number that I saw from him was 2 caused turnovers. That is more than any of the Colgate midfielders, any of the Colgate starters had actually combined. So when your attackman's causing 2 turnovers, that's usually technically on a ride. That's a great number to have. So the leading ground ball guy, though, was Jacob Fopp. Jacob Fopp is a face-off guy for Syracuse. He took 22 of the face-offs and won 15. His backup, I would say Fopp has emerged as the starter throughout the season so far. But going back to this game, his backup, Danny Verrillo, actually had 5 ground balls. But he also won 10 of 17, which is a pretty good number. So once again, Fopp took 22 out of 39 and won 15 of those. That's a good number to have. Good percentage. Drake Porter played the whole game, had 12 saves and 14 goals against. And for the grades for this team, I'd give the attack an A, as their total point total for them was 17 points, I believe, coming out of the starting attack. Obviously, more came out of the backup. Came out of the backup attackman that would sub in. Desco usually subs in 1 or 2 a game throughout the game just to give a rest to certain players. So I would give the attack an A, as they, out of the 32 points, they had over half of them. That's a great number to have. Midfield line, I'd give them a B, actually, honestly. Because you had a guy like Jamie Tremboli who had a great game. But you also had Tucker Dordovich who had 1 assist. Granted, he took 4 shots, but still, I think I expected more out of Tucker. Brendan Curry, also starting midfielder, had 2 goals, 2 points on 7 shots. Once again, I think besides Tremboli, Curry and Dordovich were the 2 guys that I expected a lot out of. The second line middies actually had more points than them, which to me says a lot. They were getting hot, I guess. like I said, I didn't attend this game, so this is just me going off of what I saw and things that were said to me. Now, the one thing that was said, and I'll kind of reiterate it through these next couple of games because it's something I saw. This team had a little bit of growing pains under Pat March's system. This was their first game, but it's a good game to get it out of their system and get the bad games out of their systems. They did score 21 goals, so I don't want to act like they played bad, but this offense will be 10 times better once they get it on a roll. So I would look for them to greatly improve, I would say, on Pat March's system. He's just an offense coordinator that seems to fire up his guys. That's things that I've seen as I watch the games. He's very into it on the clears. He's into it on every side of the ball. He's very into the game. He's talking to every player before the game starts. Basically, he's an OC, but he's also serves as a head coach in a way, because he's out there talking to all his guys. He's talking to some defensive guys, giving them tips about how to defend guys from the other team, because he can see what they want to run. The attendance for this game actually was fairly decent for a Friday night, or Friday afternoon, I should say. 2,140. That's actually a very good attended game. Syracuse came in after last year's debacle. They came in with circling this game on the calendar. They said, we want Colgate again. We can't wait to get rid of last year's number, because I think I speak for most Syracuse fans. When after I saw the Colgate game, I said, uh-oh, here we go. If they can't right the ship, this team isn't going to go far. And I had the exact opposite reaction. Granted, Colgate was 0-2 coming into this game, I believe, but at the same time, it was Syracuse's first chance to show what they could do. I mean, you look at all the guys that had assists. I mean, this is an offense that last year against Colgate, I believe, I'm double checking right now to be sure, but I don't think they put up these kind of numbers against Colgate last year. They just are a way better offense than they were. They are ahead of the Kevin Donahue offense from last year already. He played a more conservative approach, and Pat March plays the go quick bounce shot system. He runs they have the 80-second shot clock, and I believe he starts to run his offense. Somebody can correct me on this if I'm wrong. He likes to run it from about 70 and in, which is great. A lot of teams will run their offense. He starts to run it with 70, but he also will play the possession game a little bit. He does the touch and go. He will see what he sees. He calls out a play, calls out a certain number. I don't know how they call their plays, but they have a certain number that they call, I believe. Certain guys know what number that is, blah, 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 blah. They get into a certain formation, and that's a great thing to have. So, like I said, I'm just pulling up the Colgate game from last year to talk about the adverse effects of March's system. Yeah, last year they only scored 9 goals. So that's a 12-goal difference. Colgate scored 12, so they scored right around the same. Like I said, that's something to note. But it's always a big game for the Syracuse team. This is the game that they needed to win. Like I said, prove to a lot of fans, including myself, that they were past the loss from last year. I think a lot of people, including myself, were just beyond shocked that they did this, that they lost. So it's something to look forward to. Coming up next, I'm going to do the Binghamton recap. I was actually able to attend that, so I'm going to give you a more in-depth perspective, talk about it a little more, be able to, certain things that I saw, I would call that a tune-up game, and I would also call this a tune-up game for the other games on their schedule, like Army, like Virginia, like the Dukes of the world, every other big name that they're going to play. Army is the start of it, but they faced a lot of people that have a lot of good teams coming up. I mean, their Hobart is going to be a fantastic game coming up on February 28th. So look for that to be a big game on their schedule. Hobart always has that circled. They play for the Krause-Simmons Trophy. That's a Friday night game on February 28th at 7. Tough time for a lot of Syracuse fans to attend those games. But because it's Hobart, a lot of people should be there. I expect the attendance numbers to go up for Syracuse as the season goes on. And they're going to get a little better attendance due to the fact that they have some Saturday games coming up. So, once again, this is a Syracuse lacrosse podcast, and this is Dan Hamer saying thank you for listening. As always, any feedback, anything like that, you can reach out to me via Twitter and or Instagram at Cuse1987. Send me a direct message. Reach out to me. Tell me what I can do to improve the podcast, I think is the biggest thing. A lot of feedback, what you like about it, some things you want to listen to, certain things like that. So, once again, on the next episode, I'll have the Binghamton recap, and then I have another one coming out soon, also the Army recap. So look for that. And I'll talk to you guys then. Thank you for listening.